Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're journeying back in time to a city of art and beauty, Florence, but during one of its darkest hours, World War II. It was a time of chaos and destruction. Allied bombs rained down. Historic bridges that had stood for centuries were reduced to rubble, and a shadow fell over the Renaissance city. Hope was a flicker in the wind, easily extinguished. Amidst this turmoil, Nazi forces, under the methodical command of the Conscripts, began a systematic campaign of cultural plunder. They weren't just soldiers, they were art thieves on a grand scale, targeting the very soul of Italy. Priceless masterpieces were stolen, and irreplaceable manuscripts were seized, destined for Hitler's proposed fur museum. Florence, the cradle of the Renaissance, was being bled dry of its history. But in the quiet, dusty halls of a Florentine library, one man refused to let the city's spirit die. His name was Luca Moretti. He wasn't a soldier or a politician. He was a humble librarian, a guardian of stories. Luca believed that books were not just paper and ink. They were the collective memory of humanity. He believed that saving these stories was as crucial as saving lives, for what is a future without its past? As the threat intensified, Luca knew he had to act. He watched with a heavy heart as soldiers marched through the streets, their trucks loaded with stolen heritage. He couldn't fight them with a gun, but he could fight them with something more enduring: courage and cunning. His battlefield would be the library, and his weapons would be secrecy and an unshakable resolve. He began his silent rebellion in the dead of night. His first targets were the most precious items in the collection. Original letters penned by the great Dante Alighieri, the father of the Italian language, and Galileo. Galileo's own handwritten notes pages that had literally redrawn our understanding of the cosmos. These weren't just old documents. They were cornerstones of Western civilization. With trembling hands but a steady purpose, Luca carefully pried up the ancient floorboards of the library. Beneath the worn wood, in the cool, dark earth, he created a secret sanctuary. One by one, he wrapped each treasure in oilcloth to protect it from the damp, and laid it to rest, hiding history itself beneath his feet. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant shout, sent a jolt of fear through him. He knew the penalty for such defiance was instant execution. But the thought of these works being lost forever was a fate he found even more terrifying. One fateful evening, the heavy thud of boots echoed on the library's marble steps. The doors burst open. German soldiers, stern and suspicious, stormed in, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. Luca stood his ground, a single candle held aloft, its flame dancing and casting long, wavering shadows. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his face was a mask of calm. "What can I do for you, gentlemen?" he asked, his voice even. "We have orders to search the premises for valuable state property," the commanding officer snapped, his eyes scanning the endless rows of shelves. They tore through the library, pulling books from shelves, tapping on walls, their search growing more aggressive. Luca watched, motionless, praying his secret hiding place would hold. Finally, they stood before him, their frustration palpable. Luca simply gestured to the dusty air around them. "As you can see," he said, with a slight shrug, "there is only dust and words here. Old stories for a city in need of them." Deceived by his composure and the apparent insignificance of the old library, the soldiers eventually left, their boots clattering into the night. Luca leaned against a bookshelf, the candle trembling in his hand, and let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He had won the battle, but he knew the war for these books was far from over. They would be back. That very night, Luca knew he had to escalate his operation. The floorboards were no longer safe enough. He began a new, more ambitious plan. He gathered old wooden crates, the kind used for transporting coal. Working tirelessly through the night, fueled by coffee and sheer willpower, he began packing. He carefully layered the priceless manuscripts between stacks of ordinary, worthless books, creating a literary camouflage. On the outside of each crate, he stenciled the word carbone, coal. It was a brilliant, simple deception. Who would suspect that crates of what appeared to be dirty fuel actually contained the genius of Dante and Galileo? His next challenge was smuggling them out of the city. He recruited a small, trusted network of contact-sold friends, farmers, and even a few sympathetic priests. Under the cover of darkness, these crates were loaded onto rickety carts, hidden beneath tarps and hay bales. They moved along forgotten country lanes and ancient pathways, avoiding German patrols. Their destinations were a series of secluded monasteries and remote villas tucked away in the Tuscan hills, places of quiet contemplation that now became fortresses of knowledge. Each successful journey was a victory, but the risk never faded. Every shadow could be a soldier, every distant engine the sound of discovery. This clandestine operation continued for months. Luca grew gaunt, his eyes etched with exhaustion, but his spirit never faltered. He was a ghost in his own city, a whisper in the annals of the resistance, orchestrating the greatest literary escape in Florence's history. Then, as suddenly as it began, the war ended. Florence was liberated. The city slowly began to heal, to rebuild. The stolen art and hidden treasures began to resurface. The books and manuscripts Luca had saved were carefully brought back from their hillside sanctuaries, returning to their rightful home. But in the midst of the celebration, a mystery emerged. Luca Moretti was gone. He had vanished without a trace. No one knew what had become of him. Some whispered that he had been caught and executed on his final smuggling run. Others believed he had simply faded away, seeking a quiet life, his mission complete. He had never sought recognition, only the survival of the stories he cherished. The man who saved Florence's memory became, himself, a memory. Decades passed. The world changed, but the library remained. During a major renovation project in the late 20th century, workers were replacing the old, tired floorboards in the main reading room. As they pulled up a section near where Luca's desk once stood, they found something unexpected: a small, sealed wooden box. Inside the box was a single, yellowed envelope. With great care, a historian unsealed it. It contained a letter, written in elegant, looping script. The message was not addressed to anyone in particular, but to everyone who would come after. It read, "To the future, if you're reading this, it means we have prevailed. Remember that courage does not always roar like a lion. Sometimes it is the quiet voice at the end of the day that says, 'I will try again tomorrow.' Sometimes it whispers from between the pages of a book. Protect these whispers. Let them be heard." It was signed, simply, a librarian. The discovery brought Luca Moretti's story roaring back to life. Florence, finally knowing the full extent of his sacrifice, chose to honor its silent hero. Today, if you visit that library, you will see a bronze statue standing proudly near the entrance. It's not a general on a horse or a king on a throne. It is the statue of a man in simple clothes, holding a book in one hand and a lantern in the other, forever lighting the way for those who seek knowledge. Luca Moretti never asked for glory. He never wanted a statue. He only asked that the stories survive. And because of his quiet, unyielding courage, they did. His legacy reminds us that one person, armed with purpose and a love for the timeless power of words, can indeed save the world. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey into the past. If you were moved by Luca's story, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more tales of hidden history. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious.